Otto, I'm the senior minister here at Lincoln Christian Church, and I'm having a phenomenal day today. It is such a good day for me. All right, church is over. You can go home now. Most of us know what photo filters are. All the new modern cell phones have that ability. You can take a picture of yourself, and then you can really filter out the wrinkles. You can filter in white teeth. You can filter in a tan and everything. Something amazing is happening on some dating sites. There's a bunch of young dudes out there who are turning against this in a big way. They've declared a bait and switch on a bunch of people, and they're like, "You don't look anything like your pictures that you sent," and they're calling it out, and they're starting to ask for more raw photos. Give me a picture of yourself that's not filtered. Give me a picture of you that doesn't have makeup on, and this is freaking young girls out. And the guys, some guys have done the same. I understand that. For everyone who's online today, what you're watching right now is not filtered. I am this good looking. In Jesus, someone over here went, geez. In Jesus' day, this is what the Pharisees did. They made themselves look way better than they really were. They looked great on the outside, but Jesus is about to call out what's going on the inside. This Pharisee is going to go way out on a social limb. He's going to invite Jesus to his house. He thinks he's going to examine Jesus. And Jesus is about to flip the script on him pretty quick. This is not going to be a dinner that's pleasant. This is going to get awkward real fast because Jesus is about to call out the Pharisees. He does that twice in the Bible, Luke 11 and Matthew 23, where he really just leans into them. Now, is Jesus angry? No. Jesus is trying to wake up this man's spiritual journey as much as he's trying to wake up any of ours. What is the issue on Jesus' mind? Hypocrisy. Jesus didn't tolerate hypocrisy in his life. If you've been going to church for any amount of time or ever invited anyone to church, somewhere along the way you've probably heard someone say, I'm not going to that church, it's full of hypocrites. What a lame excuse. All right? It's just, if anybody hears this and you've ever said that, especially online, it's just such a weak, lame excuse. You go to sporting events, there's hypocrites there. You go to the shopping centers, there's hypocrites there. You go to the restaurant, there's hypocrites there. And to say you're not going to church because there's hypocrites here, yeah, there are hypocrites here. We are. Our actions don't always follow what we believe. That's true. But one thing, and here's the last time I heard it, and I responded to this poor guy this way. I said, listen, if a hypocrite is coming between you and God, that hypocrite is still closer to God than you are. Man, did that feel good to say that. I'm just going to tell you. Yes. In a way, we're all a little bit hypocritical. There's a difference, though. The difference between the unbeliever and the believer is that we ran to Jesus because we needed him to save us so bad. We accepted his salvation. He is cleaning us up from the inside out. And there's not a person here who wants to walk around looking all holy and pious, trying to put on some fake air. That's not what we want. We're still in a spiritual battle ourselves. We're still in a spiritual war. And all of us are there. And to say that we somehow have a perfect handle on this hypocrisy, we don't. But if you're watching this today and you're using that not to come and worship, you're making a big mistake. This is what Jesus is about to lay on this poor Pharisee. and we're in here. The reason I picked this series, Dinner with Jesus, is because last year as I was reading through the Gospels, it just started happening over and over again. Every time there's a dinner, and Jesus eats with all kinds of people. He eats with sinners, and he eats with his followers, and he eats with the elite, and he eats with poor. And every time I sensed that he was revealing something about himself, which was really uniquely him, but he was revealing something about his host. And I didn't like how many times I was with the host. And so brace yourself. Here we go. Luke chapter 11, verse 37. When Jesus had finished speaking, a Pharisee invited him to eat with him. He went in, he reclined at the table, but the Pharisee was surprised when he noticed that Jesus did not first wash before the meal. Oh my gosh, am I seeing this right? Bonnie, are you seeing this? He didn't wash before the meal. Next time I get scolded for that, Jesus didn't either. There. I'm just like Jesus. This isn't about hygiene, by the way. This is about ritual. The Pharisees had added so much to the law of God. God gave a perfect law, and then the Pharisees just started adding all these extra rules. And by this time, in Jesus' day, there was this really flamboyant ceremonial washing that they would go through, the Pharisees and rabbis. And so Jesus is a rabbi. So why isn't he just doing this big show of wash and letting the water run down? He didn't do that. Don't think for one moment that Jesus just made a mistake. Don't think for one moment that Jesus was forgetful. Don't you think this is a setup? Jesus knows exactly what he's doing. He walked in, he saw that ceremonial pot there of all that water, and he walked right past it. Because today, he's aiming at a man's heart. And so it feels a little bit like a setup to me. Jesus read this man's mind, by the way. He doesn't speak these words. He's just thinking this. Oh, there it is. I knew he wasn't really a religious rabbi. I knew it. Look at him. He didn't even wash his hand. And Jesus immediately goes, that's an interesting thought. Can we talk about that for a minute? I mean, it just had to blow him away, shock him. And then now Jesus is going to lay a series of woes on this Pharisee. I think there are other Pharisees there, even though the passage doesn't say that. They often brought meals together and had Jesus in there. And so there's a lot of Pharisees, I imagine. And he's going to say woe to them. Now, we don't use that wording much anymore. Maybe after today we will. The next time someone cuts me off in traffic, woe to you! I'm going to try it. Woe in Jesus' day was one of the harshest rebukes you could lay on someone. It's a chastisement. But along with the woe comes a sense of sorrow in it also. Jesus is saying, woe to you. You're so far off track here. Woe to you. And there's a sense of sorrow in the word also. Old Testament prophets used it. So Jesus is using a word from them, woe to you. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like in Isaiah 5:20. Isaiah 5:20 is a statement to the nation, woe to you who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. That's, by the way, that's our nation right now. You can find it anywhere. You just got to turn on the TV. You'll hear it sooner or later. Listen to any politician. You'll hear it. Where things that God said are evil, they're saying is good, and things that God said are good, they're saying is evil. It's obvious. The same judgment that was on the nations in the Old Testament is on us. It's coming. And Jesus will use this phrase, woe to you. Now, he's going to have a list of 7 charges against them. So just real quick, let me walk you through this. He's going to say, woe to you because you're majoring in the minors. This whole thing of washing with ceremonial washing, it's just majoring in the minors, by the way. And then he's going to say, woe to you, because outwardly you look great, but the inside of the cup is totally dirty. Inwardly, you're rotting away, and you're not aware of that. And he tells them, woe to you for that. And then he says, woe to you for not showing mercy, not showing justice. The passage where he does this, by the way, is in regards to tithing. Man, the Pharisees were so meticulous with their tithing that 10% had to go to God. They were even tithing their herbs from their garden. 9 for me, 1 for God. 9 for, separating little leaves. And Jesus says, while you're all wrapped up in that, you're neglecting mercy. You're generous in your offerings, but you're stingy in your mercy. And Jesus says, woe to you for that. Jesus tells them, by the way, you should have done both. You should have tithed, but you should also be generous with mercy. And then this status, seeking status. They love their own fan club. Jesus says, woe to you when you like to get the chief seats. Woe to you when you love big greetings in the marketplace. Woe to you. I got the opportunity years ago to go to Indonesia and to speak and preach there. And while I was there, it's a custom of the Indonesians to take their guest speakers and they parade you right down front and give you the chief seats right in the front of the whole church. And every time it happened, I was so uncomfortable. I had two thoughts. Number one, I was thinking, does this make me a Pharisee? And number two, I was thinking, my own people don't treat me with this much respect. Anyway, and it was so and Jesus says, man, you love this. By the way, the Pharisee would walk into a crowd and there'd be all these formal greetings and people bowing. And then they'll spit in Jesus' face. And Jesus says, you love this. You love. Listen, don't get too caught up in the praise of men. When they compliment, you take the compliment, you thank them, but don't carry that too long. We all know who we really are inside, don't we? But the big woe that Jesus lays on them is tombs. You're woe to you because you're like graves that are being walked on. You're like tombs that have been whitewashed. Way back in ancient Israel days, they painted their graves and their tombs white so that nobody would accidentally walk on them or touch them. The reason was because in the Old Testament it said if you touched a grave, you were unclean for 7 days. Well, in Jerusalem, there was all these pilgrims constantly making their pilgrimage to Jerusalem, and not all graves were in a cemetery. Some graves were out in the country, and you didn't want someone to accidentally walk across it and then walk into the temple area unclean. And so they would whitewash everything, whitewash. And Jesus says, man, you're a whitewashed tomb. You look great on the outside, all white and pure and clean, but inside you're full of dead man's bones. There's just death and stench inside. It's the house when you smell something isn't right. You smell it. You're like, what is that? And if your house smells, 99% of the time, it's either a pet or a baby. I'm just going to tell you that right now. But anyway, you smell and you're like, what is that? And instead of tracking it down and addressing it and cleaning it, you just spray Febreze everywhere. You just try to cover it up and then tell your friends, yeah, come on in. It's the house. It's the beautiful house that keeps the garage door closed all the time. Because they know the chaos that's in that garage. And so for curb appeal, keep that garage door down so it all looks nice from the street. But boy, if you open that garage door, you'd see the mess. I'm a mess inside that Jesus had to wash and clean and forgive. All of you are a mess inside that Jesus had to wash and clean, and we do it through baptism. Jesus said, be baptized and have your sins washed away. That's not outwardly, that's something inwardly that happens. And so we ask all of our people to be baptized just like he did. It's a cleansing that has to take place, a cleansing that has to happen. Jesus lays all this on his host, by the way. It feels awkward. It feels like he's digging a little too deep. These are not harsh words, but there's so much at stake. Hey, Pharisee, your soul is at stake here. We have to get attention on this. And so Jesus calls it out. What is Jesus revealing about himself in here? Oh, brace yourself. He would rather offend your lifestyle than protect your comfort. He'd rather offend your lifestyle than protect your comfort, so he calls it out. He's not impressed with religious behavior. He wants your heart. And really big in this story is the authority issue. Jesus holds the authority. The Pharisee thought he was doing the judging and found himself judge because the Pharisee didn't hold the badge in this story. Jesus holds the badge. A criminal and a cop might both have a gun, but only one holds the badge. Years ago, I was a police chaplain up in Michigan. Some of you may not know that. I served at a church, but I was a volunteer chaplain with the Lansing Police Department, and they gave me this great big gorgeous gold badge, which was just incredible and so helpful when you got pulled over. And Bonnie and I, we were traveling just 5 months after 9/11. I know there's younger people in here, you weren't even born yet, but let me tell you, following 9/11, the terror attack on the towers, the airports, the security was intense. And I found myself with that badge, and I was able to navigate security really fast. And at one point, I flashed that badge, and they waved me through, and a woman behind me saw it. And when she found out that we were on the same flight, she walked up to Bonnie and I. She put her hand on my arm, and she said, "I feel so much better knowing you're on our flight." I said, "You're welcome." And then I looked at Bonnie with a big grin, and Bonnie rolled her eyes, and she said, "Geez, you're just a stupid chaplain." The badge means authority. We live in a world that does not want to accept the authority of Jesus Christ, and that's not us. People back then, the Pharisees were rejecting his authority, but the people could see it. In Luke chapter 4, verse 36, all the people were amazed. They said to each other, "What words are these? With authority and power, he orders the impure spirits, and they just come out? Really?" In Luke chapter 4, they were amazed at his teaching because his words had authority. Jesus himself, before leaving this world, said, "All authority, all of it is mine. I don't care if you're standing in heaven. I don't care if you're standing on earth. All authority has been given to me." How about you? Do you accept the authority of Jesus? Jesus didn't come to this world quoting any rabbi. He had his own authority. Jesus didn't come, he didn't ask permission from the Sanhedrin. He didn't have a letter from the Pharisees. He didn't ask the high priest, and he wasn't commissioned by the Roman government. He came on his own authority. He rode into the city on a colt like a king. He overthrew tables. He drove out the money changers. By what authority do you do these things? Because he has all authority. They didn't keep him from going where he wanted to go. They didn't keep him from doing what he wanted to do. They didn't keep him from saying what he wanted to say. He cast out demons with just a word. He healed leprosy with just a word. He calmed storms with just a word. He raised the dead with just his word. He has all authority. The only question today is, do you accept his authority or not? The clock was ticking for this Pharisee, and Jesus loved him enough to call it out. Outwardly, you look amazing, but inwardly, we can smell the rot. Wouldn't you like to have that washed away? What are you waiting for, Paul says? Get up. Be baptized. Have your sins washed away. Yeah. The Father in heaven says, "My Son has all authority." The world around us says, "Oh, no, he doesn't." You get to pick which side you're on. Today, if there's anybody ready and they're just like, "You know what? I've waited long enough. Today's the day I publicly accept Jesus. Today's the day I publicly step out for him." You can come down. I'll meet you right down front here while we stand and sing.